Welcome again. The question is, can God walk? We, in the other video, understood that God has a finger. So the question is, can God walk? Now again, I think that God entering His creation, it's something that God can do, and it's not something that would degrade the work of God, but actually glorify it. I believe that degrading is telling God that he cannot enter His creation because it will lower Him as a God. I don't think that God can be lowered even if He enters His creation, because if God can be lowered when He enters His creation, He cannot be God to be started with. So today we're going to see if God can walk. As we see here right now, we're going to read the first verse. It is Genesis chapter 5:22, and it says, "And Enoch walked with God." So we have confirmation by Enoch that he walked with God. This is in verse Genesis 5:22. So 5:22 says that Enoch walked with God. Enoch walked with God. Interestingly, if we look at the next verse, which is Genesis 5:24, we see that and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, or God took him. So God had taken Enoch, but before he taken Enoch, he was walking with God. He walked with God. So apparently, according to these two verses, God can walk. So again, God can walk. Let's check it, Genesis 6:9. It says that if we look the whole chapter, in the end it says this, the verse says this again. And Noah walked with God. Similar case that with Enoch. So he walked with God. So God walks, because if He can walk, that means He has foot. God has feet, but He can only have feet if He becomes in the form of a human. So entering His creating, walking with God. Again, the verse speaks miles about it. I don't need to quote it. Look at Genesis 3:8. Very interesting one. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. This is Adam and Eve. They heard it before when they sinned, after they sinned. And they heard the voice, so God has a voice, He must have a mouth, of the Lord God walking in the garden of the cool of the day. It was doing a good day, so God decided to walk into His creation that day. So again, we have confirmation from Genesis 3:8. This is the Genesis 3:8 that God can walk. Outstanding confirmation of this. Now, the key point is going to be this last verse I'm going to give you. There's a lot of verses that speak that God can walk, but specifically, these ones are very interesting to look at. But this is the key one. John 6:19. This is what Jesus did. Listen. So when they had throw it around 5 and 20 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking on the sea and drawing nigh unto the ship, and they were afraid. So they were afraid because they were watching Jesus walking on the sea. So Jesus was walking on the sea. If we look at these other examples in all of Genesis, we see that God can walk. So only God can walk, because only God has that property of doing whatever He wants to His creation. So if He decides to enter His creation in the human form, He can do that and not sin. At the same time, He can walk through water without going down the water, because He's God. He can control all that. He's power over energy, which is what we are. So again, can God walk? Well, apparently He can, and He can thanks to Jesus Christ. Only God can do these. Only God Himself can walk through water and do the things He's doing right here, as we see these other references in the Old Testament. So, question resolved. Can God walk? Absolutely yes. And as we saw in the video before, God has a finger. Putting those things together, we're having already something very interesting. So stay tuned for the next video. Jesus Christ God? Yes, absolutely is. According to this, He can walk. Not only that, God can walk, and also it proves more evidence that God can do whatever He wants to His creation, because He took to do it with Him. I don't think that anyone should go against the rules of God, saying that God cannot do something if He's doing it already. He's walking. Thank you very much. God bless. Next video.